Welcome to the No Fear Sock Knitting class online. My name is Denise, and in today's class we are going to learn how to knit a shadow wrap short row heel in a contrasting color, 2 at a time, breaking the main yarn. So I will teach you how to weave in your ends as you go. There are a lot of moving parts to this tutorial, so we are going to do it together, and we're going to take our time and completely eliminate the second sock syndrome. None of that will be happening here. So get your yarn and needles ready and let's jump right in. Here we go. I will be demonstrating this technique on 2 circular needles, but this can also be applied to magic loop. The technique, the actual process of doing this is going to be the same, so you can still follow along. So as you can see, I have my socks, my 2 socks going at once. I have the 2 balls, which are the main color, attached here, and then here are here's my 2 contrasting balls. So I am going to actually break. Now, the best way to do this, you can measure. Got my tape measure right here. For those of you that want to be very, very precise, you can actually measure how long you are breaking this, but I tend to sort of eyeball it. You can also kind of hold them together and just make a little estimate. And I'm going to go right about here. Okay, and then do the same on this side. So I am breaking the main color. Okay, and I am on or close to the same length as you can see here. Let me pull the camera back a little bit. So I am now ready to begin, and I'm going to start by weaving in the tail that we just broke off. So I'm going to find the end of my needle here, put that in. I'm going to drape that tail over the needle. I've got my contrasting color, and you can leave a pretty generous end. And if some of you think that the tail that I left was a little too short, by all means, just make it longer. Just be sure to match for the other side. So I've just made a little loop over my finger that I'm going to drape over, just like that. That is what's happening. So I'm going to come under my tail. I'm going to drop this tail, pick up the main color, and as you can see, the tail is draped over the top. I'm going to now start to catch that. Go under, knit the next one to catch it, go under one more, bring that over, and catch one more time. So I have now secured that over 6 stitches. I am now going to drop that tail and just tuck it in just to get it out of my way. Okay, but I don't want to tuck in the other tail just yet. I want that to hang out because I need to remember to work on that when I come across. So now what you're doing, so the tails are woven in. What I'm going to do now is just work the shadow wrap heel on this first sock. I'm going to go back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to knit over to the last stitch, excuse me, to the last stitch on this side. I'm going to create my first twin stitch, then I'm going to turn this, and on the purl side, create the twin stitch on this side. So let's do that together. And as always, if you've been watching my tutorials for a while, I like to do things in what I call real time, so you can see exactly how this looks over the course of 2 full rows. So I'm just knitting across. And I think this contrasting color works perfectly with this colorway. The name of this colorway is Autumn Leaves by West Yorkshire Spinners, and the contrasting color is Pumpkin by Knit Picks Stroll. I will link to all of that in the description box down below. So here I am at my first stitch. There is the first strand I'm going to catch. Put that up on my needle. And there is my first twin stitch. Now I'm going to carefully turn this. Again, I'm not worried about that second sock right now. That's just kind of hanging out, doing its own thing. So I'm going to purl back. And I purl a lot slower than I knit, as many of us do. Okay, working my way across. I'm just going to be quiet for a moment and let you just watch what I'm doing. Just simple purling. Okay, almost to the end. And the ends will feel a little bit loose until we get to the very, very last stage, once all of the tails are woven in. So I'm almost there. Okay, so here I am now at my last stitch, which is super, super loose. Okay, now what I want to do, I don't want to grab this strand because that is the tail that I just wove in. What I want to grab is this strand. Okay, and I'm going to tuck that in. Slide these back onto my left needle. Before I turn, I'm just going to tighten that up. Okay. Actually, just realized I caught that strand, so I'm just going to move that out of the way. There we go. And now I'm going to turn. Very carefully, so nothing drops. Go into that first stitch again, pull to get that a little tighter, and I'm going to work across and continue working this first shadow wrap heel the way you would work it as an individual sock. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing that. Actually, maybe I'll let you see one more time. Let's do a little bit more together. I feel like I just heard many of you say, no, 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 knit to the other side. I want to see it one more time. So let's do it together. I'm with you guys. I hear you. All right, so I'm knitting over. Okay, there's my second to last stitch. I'm going to catch the strand there, slide that onto my needle. Slide it back on, and now I have 2 twin stitches on my left needle on the knit side. I'm going to turn, purl back. Let's do it together. My ball is starting to roll. I'm not speeding this up. I want everybody to take their time and watch. If this is too slow for you, you can fast forward. The choice is yours. But I think seeing it in real time is a little bit helpful. It's like I'm sitting there with you and we're doing it together. Almost to the other side. Whoops. Yeah, 3 stitches to go. Okay, and here I am, second to last. Catch that stitch, pick up the strand to create the next twin. Slide it back onto my left needle and carefully turn. There we go. Now I'm going to continue doing that. I'm a little tangled right now. I'm going to continue going back and forth. Let me untangle myself. There we go. Find my working yarn again. And I am going to continue, as I said before, I'm just going to continue creating that the first shadow wrap heel, the shadow wrap heel on this first sock, and then I will meet you right back here. I wanted to pop in and just show you my progress so far. So the first half of the shadow wrap heel is complete, and now I am working on the second half, which includes the triple stitches. So I just want to do a little bit here with you. I'm about halfway through. just to make sure everybody is still on track. So here is my triple stitch. I'm going to knit that together, create the next triple. Oops, I split the yarn. Split it again. Hang on. This happens sometimes. Let me just take a peek. There we go. Okay, carefully put that on the needle, and I'm going to turn and continue. Now, just before we start the shadow wrap heel on the second sock, I will show you what this first sock is going to look like. So as you can see, I now have one triple stitch on either side of my first heel. So I am going to knit across, and I just knit one stitch in just so it wouldn't fall off the edge. So I'm going to knit across and show you how to now transition over to work the second heel on the heel on the second sock. So I'm just knitting across, almost there. As I'm knitting this, these colors are just mesmerizing. Okay, almost there. Now I'm just going to pull this a little closer together here. And here I go. Second to last. And now I'm going to knit that last triple stitch, because when I'm ready to start knitting with my main color again, then you'll see what we do with the last stitch. So this triple stitch on the right side of the heel stays. You're not going to work that yet until the end. And I'm going to knit, make sure I've got the right strand of yarn here. I am now going to knit that last triple stitch on the knit side. So my heel is almost complete. The first heel is complete with the exception of the last triple stitch. So now I am going to, I can technically break this yarn, okay, because when I'm ready, I am going to be starting back with my main color, okay? So I'm going to break this yarn, a contrasting color, and give yourself, you can be generous. Okay, I'm done. Now, if you only had one ball, you could just start, you can continue with this ball. I just find it easier to start with another ball. It really does not matter. So I'm going to do the same thing. Now, this first sock is going to just hang out. I'm not interested in that right now. I'm going to start with my other ball and the other heel. And I'm going to do the same thing that I just did. I'm weaving in the tail from the main color. I'm going to drape this over. Oops. Okay. Trying to get my hands coordinated here. I've already draped the tail over the needle. Going into that first stitch. Then I go into the second, I drop the tail and continue weaving in and securing that tail with the under-over motion. So I'm securing it there. Then I go under one more time, go into the next stitch and secure it. Give this a little tug just to tighten it up, and I'm going to do it one more time. I do have a full tutorial on weaving in ends as you go, which I will also link in the description box. So this time I have gone 8 stitches. It really doesn't matter, but I can show you how to undo that if you'd like to be consistent and stay with 6. So now I'm going to drop that split, hang on. I'm going to drop my tail and continue knitting across on the second heel, creating, on the second sock, creating that second heel. So I hope everybody's with me so far. So we have one heel complete. Here is an end to weave in. Here is that triple stitch. So now I'm going to keep going. and I'm going to build the heel. Let's tuck that in, get it out of our way. I'm going to build the heel now on the second sock. And I'll do 1 or 2 rounds with you, or 1 or 2 rows with you in our real time. Okay, down to my last 2 stitches. I'm going to pick up the strand to create my first twin stitch. Put that on my needle. Now, carefully, I'm going to turn and work across. I just gave a little extra tug just to snug things up in there. And I'm going to purl across to my first stitch and do the same thing. So I am basically just repeating exactly what I did on the first heel on this second heel. That end is going to be woven in later. Okay, almost there. Okay. Don't worry about the strands that you wove in before. We're doing the same thing. I'm going to knit across to this last stitch. It is very wonky, I remember. Just going to give it a little extra tug. I'm going to catch this loop here. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to slide those 2 stitches back onto my left needle, tighten that up again, and I'm going to turn carefully, holding on to that stitch so it does not fall. Give another little snug, and continue working the shadow wrap short row heel on your second sock. And then I will meet you back when I'm in the same place as the first. Now I'm almost at the end of the second heel. So as you can see, we have 2 shadow wrap heels. This is so exciting. So I am now going to show you how to reconnect your main color and how to weave in all of these ends. And you can continue with your socks. So let's knit over together. So I'm at the last triple stitch on the left side of my needle. The other triple stitch is on the right side, and I'm going to knit those strands together as 1 stitch. There we go. So now I am ready to start reconnecting my main yarn and weaving in my ends. So I'm going to break the contrasting color, move that out of the way. I'm going to bring my main colors back into play, and let's do this together. So I finished here, I pulled my needle out, I'm going to turn, and I have this end to weave in on this sock, and this end to weave in, same other side, this end on one side, this end on the other side. So I have turned the work to the instep side. I'm going to put my needle into place, and here's where the magic happens. Okay, getting my needles all sorted out here, all of my strands ready. I'm going to now reconnect to my main color. And you may be wondering what happened to the remaining triple stitch. You'll see that in just 1 second. Okay, so it's just a little fiddly for me because I'm doing this and looking through the camera. Okay, I'm grabbing the strand from my first ball. Make sure I have enough pulled off here. Same way that I reconnected before, I'm going to do that again, and I'm weaving in the tail of the contrasting color of myself. And when you're doing this, when you're reconnecting, you want to make sure that the strand that you're leaving behind is approximately the same side as the strand you will leave on your other sock. Okay, so you're just kind of eyeballing it, but that's approximately, I don't know, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 inches. Okay, so my strand is in place. I'm going to weave that in and secure it over. From there, drape it over, going under, and then over. So I've anchored that across 6 stitches. I'm going to tuck that end in. I want that out of my way. And I tend to cut my ends at the very, cut off those ends at the very end. Once I have finished my sock, I'm going to show you though how we tighten up the corners. So I'm going to keep knitting across. This whole thing will be in real time. There's no jumping ahead with this. So I'm now reconnected to my main yarn, and that's just how the yarn itself is patterning. I'm going to knit across. Now I'm going to stop about 7 stitches before the end on this side. Coming across, stop and count, and I have 2, 4, 6, 7. Perfect. This strand, I'm not worried about this second sock. This strand, I'm going to bring between the 2 needles. And I'm keeping them together because I find that's a little easier to hold. You can push them out of your way. That is knitter's choice. I like to keep them together because I find too much weight on one or the other side hurts my wrists a little. So now I've brought the yarn between the 2 needles. I've brought my finger right here into place. I'm going to bring that over, and I'm weaving in the same way that I did on the other side. There we go. Don't worry about that. You'll see what happens at the end. So I'm going under and then over, under, over, and it does not matter which you end with, meaning going under the strand or over the strand. It really doesn't matter. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is just give this a little tug, just like that. So now I'm finished. I've woven in my end. I haven't tightened up the corners yet, but the ends are now secure. Okay. And yes, that is sticking out on the wrong side. We will get to that in 1 minute. Now I'm on to the second sock. So I'm going to give myself just a little space. I'm going to go in here, get my fingers in the same position, pulling that sock out of the way a little, grabbing the strand from the other ball, giving myself, again, a little bit of the yarn, approximately. That's about the same right there. Can you all see that? That's about the same. Okay. Let that strand hang. Get my needle. All I'm doing moving off camera is just getting my finger in the getting my finger in the right position. I'm not doing anything that you can't see. Okay. And I'm going to start weaving that end in as well. I'm going over it and then under it and then over. Got my 6 stitches. Okay. I'm going to tuck that in. Kind of a long tail there. Tuck it in. Keep knitting across with my main color again. I'm going to knit across to the other side, and then we are going to tighten up the corners and get rid of those last remaining triple stitches. Need a little more yarn. I've got my camera pretty close to my work so you can see that. There we go. Okay, got a groove going now. So again, you're going to stop. Don't forget, you have to stop 2, 4, 6, more, about 7 stitches before the end. You're going to do the same thing you just did. Here's that strand waiting to be woven in. I'm bringing it between the needles. Okay, my yarn is between the needles, and I'm going to start weaving in this last end. Okay, under and over the needle, but under the strand. And then I come over the strand. Yarn goes under the needle. There we go, and over the strand. I'm going to do that one last time. There we go. Perfect. Now, pulling that out of position there, I'm going to now open this side and give this a pull. Find the other end and give that a pull. Very gentle. Holes have been eliminated. Stitches are all snug, and I will do that when I get to the other side. Here's my working yarn. Here's the tail. I'm going to pull that in. And everything gets tucked inside my sock, nice and neat. Now it's time to tighten up that other side. Getting my needle into position. Okay, grabbing my end. Here is the tail to be woven in. Here is that triple stitch. The last triple stitch is right here. Okay, the strands are all pulled tightly together, but there is a triple stitch, so carefully go into that. Make sure you tuck that cable underneath to avoid a ladder. Okay, I'm going to tuck it under and give it a good pull. All right. No holes, no spaces. I'm going to keep knitting across to 7 stitches before the end. Doing this together, take your time. As I said in the beginning, there's a lot of moving parts with this. And it may feel too fiddly to some. It may feel absolutely doable to others. It is knitter's choice. Okay, let's see. 6, 7. I'm going to grab my tail, pull that between. And now I'm going to weave that, weave that end in. Over and under. And that last stitch is so super loose and sloppy. Totally okay. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do here is give this a little tug. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to pull this strand to tighten up that stitch. Give this strand a pull, and I've now eliminated all of my holes on that side. I'm going to drop the working yarn. I'm going to pick up the other, right here, my other working yarn, and I'm going to eliminate the last triple stitch on this side. Whoop, get my needle in the right place here. Now, how do you avoid a ladder when you're working 2 at a time? I'm going to go under that stitch, that triple stitch. When I go into the second, I'm going to give a good tug and still pull that cord up in between, because that eliminates, it's the same thing I did on the other side. That is eliminating that space so I don't get a ladder or a hole. Give another little tug, and once you've done it by the 3rd stitch, you don't have to worry about that cable anymore. I'm going to knit across to the other side. And can you see how this is starting to hang? That's one of the reasons why I keep them close together. But anytime you're knitting two at a time, you also want to make sure you're grabbing the right strand and that you're not continuing to knit or straight across. Ask me how I know that. So let's get to the other end and weave in that last end. And check, 2, 4, 6. So 3 more stitches. Okay, here's my tail waiting for me. Pull that between the needles, same thing we've been doing, and you're going to weave again. Get that strand out of there. And your last one. Whoops, didn't go into the stitch. Okay, I'm just moving off camera to reposition my fingers. Hang on, I'm not going to edit this out because this is what happens. There we go. So my fingers are back in the right position, and now I'm done. So now I'm here on this side, big sloppy mess. You're going to take the tail, give a pull, take the other tail, give another little tug, and you're not pulling hard. You just want to snug up everything, okay? When you turn your work again, here is that tail that's hanging out on the wrong side. I'm just going to pull that in to the right side. All of my ends are now woven in. I have tucked them all. This one's waiting also. So I'm tucking all of my little ends in here, keeping things nice and neat. La, 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 la. Perfect. We just have that one more end waiting for us. So whoop, here's my working yarn. Now, my yarn balls have twisted. So all I'm going to do is untwist them. And if you had these in a bag, you could just turn the bag. It'll make more sense when you're actually when you have your project in a secure project bag. And now I am good to go. I am ready to just continue working on my 2 at a time. Flip that under. My heel is complete. We're going to check that other side one more time, just to be sure. Pull your needles out of the way if they're in your way. Doing it still in real time. Almost there. There it is. Just get that out of your way. Don't split it. And you're going to just tuck it in. Keep this strand out, tuck the end in, and you can keep knitting. Your working yarn is now in the same place. You're going to continue working across. I'm going to just work to the end of this row across both socks. Here we go. I'm finished on this end. And if that still looks a little bit loose, you can go in and just still give another little tug, and that tightens it all up. You're going to drop this strand, separate just a bit, grab the other working yarn, pop that cable under there just like that, and continue knitting across. And guess what, everyone? You have now knit a shadow wrap short row heel, 2 at a time, in a contrasting color, breaking your ends and weaving them in as you knit. You may have to watch this more than once. You may have to watch it more than 5 times. That is totally fine. You are learning something new. This is not hard. It is just new to you. That is not my phrase. That phrase belongs to Gigi Made It. I will link to her down below if you'd like to look her up because she's very, very inspirational. It's not hard. It's just new. So here are my working yarn. I'm just going to switch positions, turn this around, and there you have it. My heels are complete. My working yarn is back in place. There are no holes in my sock, and I am good to go. I will now continue knitting, and I will finish my socks, and that is how you knit shadow wrap short row heel 2 at a time in a contrasting color. Thank you, everyone. And there you have it, everyone, a shadow wrap short row heel in a contrasting color 2 at a time. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to leave them in the comments section underneath this video. I will also link to the name of the yarn and where I purchased it. And that's it. I hope you enjoy your sock knitting, and I will see you again very soon. Take care, everyone.